Welcome, Dr. Lanka Wijewardena. You are the founder of Arogya Pty Ltd. I've been wanting to get you on this podcast for a while. I'm sorry it took so long, but we're here now. We got it done. It's as you know, this is a podcast that's a not-for-profit podcast that is based on the Buddhist teachings and promoting meditation, and as much as possible pushing forward the practice of meditation and progressing the Dhamma through the podcast, which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I find the company that you set up and that you're running, Arogya, is fascinating. The mission statement and the aim of the company is very, very honorable, and you know, I'm all in to try and support you. So I guess, shall we start with a bit about yourself, Dr. Lanka, and your career and what you've done, and how then you ended up with starting the company?
Thank you, Dr. Lanka Wijewardena. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast. I'm really excited to be on your podcast as well. Okay. Yes, so about me, I am a Sri Lankan-born Australian, and my parents migrated to Australia for me to study medicine, basically. And I've studied in Adelaide University, and since then I've done my...
Oh, did I? Wow.
Yes, of course, I can remember you.
Wow.
Did you go to Adelaide Uni or Flinders?
Adelaide.
I
Okay. Graduated in 2006.
Right.
So
yes.
a while ago. But yeah, wow, small world.
Yes, it is. So then I did my initial internship and the 2 years of surgical RMO in Flinders Hospital, which I really loved, which is a great hospital for junior doctors to work in a very supportive environment.
Wow.
And then I moved on to Bupa Visa Medical Services in Melbourne, and then to Victoria Police, which was my last job as a police medical officer. So it has been interesting, you know, life journey, including my career.
Yeah. That's amazing. And tell us, how did you come about or think of setting up Arogya, the fantastic company that you set up?
Yeah, I have always been interested in mindfulness or the Buddhist teachings. I don't know why I was never pushed towards it, because my parents were very practical Buddhist. So as you know, like, you know, many Sri Lankan kids go to Sunday school. I never even went to Sunday school.
Wow.
So, but, you know, my parents were always practicing it on day-to-day life, with their generosity, their patience, their kindness. So I was really interested in it. And when I came to Australia, it helped me a lot to live my life in a very culturally different country as a young person, and studying in a different state to my parents. And then as a doctor, it actually helped me to keep my mental state well. Because obviously as a doctor, you see a lot of sickness, a lot of death, and sometimes you might not be able to help everyone, even though if you wanted to. And you know, it could be because of lack of resources, or because, you know, they're in a state that we cannot help them. So I think Buddhist teachings have helped me to keep my mental state quite steady throughout my career. Then when it comes to during COVID, as you know, Melbourne has the longest lockdown in the whole Australia. So I was alone, working just for 3 days, and the rest of the days I was staying at home. I was not able to, go and visit my parents, and meet my friends. So I keep in touch with all my friends who were getting really stressed out with COVID,
Right.
internationally, interstate. So then I thought, look, I love Buddhism, and it has helped me to keep myself
Yeah.
steady. Why not I develop something that I can actually share with my friends, colleagues? So that's how it started
That's
in
tremendous.
2020. Yes, and
Wow.
I did run some programs with my friends who were interstate and even overseas,
Yeah.
talking about Buddhism, how they can use Buddhist mindfulness onto their day-to-day life, um, you know, even by simply paying attention to, drinking your coffee or drinking a cup of tea,
Yes.
or
Is it
actually
bringing the
paying
mind to the
attention.
present sort of thing? Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
and making sure you eat breakfast before you go to work. Those
It's
simple
wonderful.
things that you can actually practice on day-to-day basis to
Yeah.
support your physical and psychological health. So that's how Arogya started.
That's fantastic. I've been, as thank you for sending me the material on Arogya. I've found it fascinating and read through as much of it as I could. In my previous podcast, someone asked me what Arogya meant, and I'm embarrassed to say that I briefly forgot. And then he looked it up for me. But I think it's an incredible sort of effort that you're doing, and the mission statement's wonderful. You mentioned that you worked for Bupa at one stage as a panel physician,
Yes,
I take it?
yes, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, that's incredible. And when was that?
I actually worked for them for about 5 years,
Wow,
between 2015 to 2020, which I
wow,
quite enjoyed the work I did
yes,
because it was such um, I would say it is a world on your hand,
yeah,
because it is about people trying to having medical examinations for the
yeah,
purposes of visas. So you see all
yes,
different types of people from around the world, coming for a very similar purpose, facing very similar difficulties, challenges in life. So it was like I really enjoyed that job for
yeah.
that purpose. Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because around that same time, I was working for Bupa's probably arguable competition, which was Medibank, and I used to work for Medibank as a medical director for their telehealth services, and also briefly I worked with their garrison workforce, which is their Australian Defence Force. It was Australia's largest government outsourcing in history, in fact, and
Right.
it was pretty intense. But I think what I struggle with the most was the hiring and firing of doctors and nurses, particularly in the telehealth services as well as even in garrison. You've got to investigate your colleagues. You've got to then consider whether they can stay on in the job. You've got to issue them warnings as the medical director, and then if they don't heed the warnings, then you've got to let them go. And
That
uh,
sounds very
it was very challenging, very challenging.
challenging job,
It is. It was. It
doesn't
was
it?
very high stress, very high pressure. But I think that's where I really struggle to. I struggle with my own demons and also my own morals about, I guess, and yeah, okay, what was I doing? Did I feel? I certainly some days I didn't feel good about it, especially when I was hiring and firing, especially the firing part. some of the nurses, most of the time, the nurses are pretty diligent and they did what they needed to do, but one's own colleagues, doctors, and so on and so forth, it was really challenging. Okay, how do I live with what I'm doing? But look, there was a lot of pros to that, because at the end of the day, you're guarding patient safety. You had voice recordings of the phone calls that were occurring, and you had arguably a lot of justification and ammunition to do what you were doing at the time, and guarding patient safety. And so there was a lot of reasons to say, okay, well, what I'm doing is guarding patient safety. And so what I struggled with was the fact that, okay, at least I was taking away someone's livelihood, whether it be permanently or temporarily or part of a livelihood. It was the demons that I struggled with. And I guess there's pros and cons, and on some days I'd feel good about it, some days I'd feel bad about it. But at the end of the day, the Eightfold Path, right action, right thought.
It is the intention that matters. I was just going to say it, because I think what you are saying is one of the most important things that the doctors actually find challenging. So for an example, when it comes to occupational medicine, that is completely a different mindset to a GP or a doctor who's working in the hospital, isn't it?
Yes.
Because the doctors who are working in the GP placement or a hospital, their main intention to look after that individual person. But when you moved into occupational medicine, or when you move into administration, medical administration, that has to be a different mentality, because that mentality is about patient safety. And it is about not only about that individual doctor or the customer or one person that we are serving. It is about how our decision is going to impact the people around that individual person, as well as the public. So for an example, I worked for Victoria Police, and I found, that's a challenging job, because you are looking after these highly trained individuals and assessing them for fitness for duty. And and my decisions can impact their livelihood. It's occupational medicine and medical administration can be quite challenging. And I think it comes down to the intentions of why am I doing this?
Exactly.
I'm not doing this to harm anyone, or you were not doing that to harm anyone.
Exactly.
You were doing it to actually keep a safe environment, isn't it?
Exactly, and definitely that's what got me through. I was making decisions to protect people at a population level, not just on a case by case basis, and that was what inspired me to go into medical administration, that sort of work. But I think that's great. And look, I think that brings us very nicely onto, Arogya. Lanka, can you tell our listeners a bit about your company, Arogya Pty Ltd, and your Heal with Buddhism programs? What inspired you to create your business and programs? What is your company's, Arogya's, aim or mission statement?
Right. As I mentioned before, Asanda, throughout my life, my dream was to become a doctor, but I was always passionate about Buddhism and its values in individual and social well-being. It's because, as I said, I have personally experienced and observed the benefits of practical application of Buddhist teachings while navigating through my life with challenges as a young adult growing in Sri Lanka, a country with 30 years of civil war, if you can remember. But also, but also as an Australian migrant and Australian medical graduate.
Right.
So I developed healing Buddhism programs, combining my passion for Buddhism with my medical experience as an occupational medicine, understanding there is a need for a program like mine especially to fulfill the gap in the contemporary well-being industry, which is largely decontextualized from its original teachings. Because I could see the potential benefits of such a program that could practice by anyone. You know, you don't have to be a Buddhist to practice Buddhist teachings.
Indeed.
You can practice it regardless of your age, your gender, your race, ethnicity, religious or educational backgrounds,
Indeed.
especially under the post-COVID health crisis and the global crisis we are facing in the current world.
Indeed.
So
yes,
I think there is a real need for a program like mine. And it is not only about meditating. That's one thing people forget when people are talking about mindfulness. It is about daily practicing of individual,
So what if life isn't? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is why you can come from any background or religious practice and still practice Buddhism at the same time. It doesn't exclude you.
So we are a private company with a philanthropical mission to teach individuals how to be content through the practice of application of Buddhist mindfulness that explicitly advocate our vision of creating a healthy, happy, safe, and fair society, while which supports 8 dimensions to wellness.
That's fantastic. So, that's great. So, private company with not-for-profit aim. I think that's wonderful. So, Lanka, can you tell me, how's it possible for all of us to incorporate the Eightfold Path into our daily lives?
Sure. So before I answer this question, I would like to briefly explain Eightfold Middle Path to your listeners who may not be familiar with it. For me, Eightfold Middle Path is the gist of the Buddhist teachings. I personally consider it as a personal development program with short-term and long-term goals, where individuals have to follow 3-step lifestyle consists of 8 components. So in reality, it is a lifestyle that can be practiced by anyone in any era with an intention to see contentment within, while creating a harmonious society for ourselves and others, which, if I were to explain briefly, the first step is about developing wisdom through right understanding. What is this right understanding? It is about understanding the continuously changing and uncontrollable nature of life that brings suffering as a result of cause and effect phenomena, which encourages us to act with generous, kind, and compassionate intentions instead of being greedy, cruel, or ignorant. So the second step is about developing autonomic moral conduct. So the reason I say autonomic moral conduct is, people can have moral conduct because they're afraid of God, or because they're afraid of the law. It's not about that. It is about you having a real understanding. Look, if I were to do this, this is going to affect myself, or this is going to affect someone else. So autonomic moral conduct is about practicing right speech, actions, or livelihood that helps us to create a healthy, happy, safe, and fair society, which not only benefits ourselves, but also others. When you goes into third step, it is about putting an effort to achieve permanent contentment while being content with each moment in our lives through the practice of mindfulness. So in brief, it is about mindful living. So let's talk about today. We are doing this program with the intention to teach others about Buddhist mindfulness.
Yes.
Which would definitely benefit others in managing their health and well-being.
Indeed.
At the same time, we need to understand that everyone who listens to us may not consider it beneficial, isn't it?
Or I guess practical in their particular life path. Yeah.
So some may praise it because they find it valuable, but others may criticize it because they may not agree with Buddha's teaching. But if we were to maintain right awareness or mindfulness understanding the reality, we would not be overwhelmed by neither the praises nor the criticisms, isn't it?
And subsequently doubt, isn't it? Doubt being the biggest thing that we face, or problem that a lot of Buddhist teachers talk about.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. I mean, you're right. I mean, that the doubt is the biggest thing, isn't it? Certainly, there are lots of occupations in the world where it would be challenging to practice the Eightfold Path, where it involves company structures that are based upon greed, KPIs, and generating company wealth that isn't necessarily based on wholesome deeds. Most of it may be on unwholesome deeds, where you're disadvantaging others, killing other beings, killing other animals, etc. In fact, even the arms trade, isn't it? The arms trade is massively morally corrupt, isn't it? And worldwide, countries as a whole are profiteering massively on it, and it's terrible. It's terrible. So, I guess really, what I'm getting at is the Eightfold Path needs to be something that we're all taught to practice at a very basic level, from a very young age, indeed, isn't it?
Yes.
So the Eightfold Path is, culturally, growing up in Sri Lanka and in a Sri Lankan family, it's ingrained in us from a very young age, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
What would you say to those that are out there that might be listening to us that are already in a path or a earning a living through unwholesome deeds? How is it too late to change?
Look, I personally believe it is not, because there is, some people say, okay, there is a saying in general, there is a understanding in general community that, if you're doing something which is not morally correct, that you are not a Buddhist. But I don't believe Buddha say that, because Buddhism never exclude anyone,
No.
So it is true that there is a certain truth. Goals of the Eightfold Path is different to some of the careers, like example, as you mentioned, human or animal trafficking, slaughtering, handing weapons, sex trade, trading alcohol, tobacco, and other non-medicinal substances.
Indeed.
This is why Buddhism has actually objected people to perform those type of livelihood. So it is considered as unhealthy or unwholesome livelihoods, because at the end of the day, these actions will not bring health, happiness, or sustainable wealth to the society, it is most likely to create unhealthy, unhappy, unsafe, and unfair society for themselves and others.
And others, yeah.
Yes, so this is where the Buddhism says, if you are in a job or a situation that you might be at risk or you are putting others at risk, see what you can do, because it's not easy, as said than done, for people to change their jobs or to get out of different circumstances in life. But it doesn't exclude from them becoming or practicing Buddhism. I actually Googled a story for you for this. So the story is a Kukulamita, a great example for this. This situation, because Kukulamita was a hunter.
I see.
And his wife was a devoted follower of Gautam Buddha, despite of being a hunter's wife.
I see.
So
this is during Buddha's time, was it? During Buddha's time?
Yeah, during Buddha's time. So one day, Buddha, as you know, there are stories where Buddha come to meet the Sangha and tell them stories about, people who have attained the noble path, or who have attained enlightenment, or who have entered the path to enlightenment. So one of these days, he actually told Sangha that this lady who is a hunter's wife has attained the first step of 4 steps to enlightenment, which is Sotapatti. So everyone was so surprised.
Can you please tell us what Sotapatti means?
Sotapatti means it is the first step of attaining. So attaining nirvana.
Or is it like sort of Tula Sotapanna, or less?
What is it?
Tula means little, Sotapanna. Is that sort of similar meaning, or?
No, so Chula meaning little, but Sotapatti is so there are 4 steps to enlightenment: Sotapatti, Sakrudagami, Anagami, and Arahat. So Arahat is the final stage of enlightenment, and a person like you or me can attain. And the Sotapatti is the first stage of enlightenment. So it doesn't stop us being reborn, but it stops us from reborning again and again in this life cycle. It stops us up to 8 cycles of life. That's what Buddha says.
Right.
So that's the first stage of enlightenment. So everyone was very surprised, because this lady actually cleaned up this hunter's, bows and arrows, and, gives him the support to kill animals every day. So Buddha explained that she was able to reach it because she participated in her daily activities with right intentions, while having right understanding about the continuously changing, unpredictable, and uncontrollable nature of life. Her birth or her marriage to this hunter is not something that she could have controlled. But her mind is something she could have controlled. So every day, when she give this support to her husband, yet she did it with the understanding, this is a livelihood that he has chosen, that it is not that something that I can control, but I can do this with a right intention and follow the Buddha's teaching for my own well-being. So she actually attained, Sotapatti according to the story. So the message from Lord Buddha is that no one is excluded from his teachings. Everyone, regardless of their life circumstances, are welcome to follow and practice his teachings. According to Dharma, they should be able to overcome their challenges in life through the practice of teachings while creating a better environment for themselves and others. So even though she couldn't change her situation, obviously she has changed her situation for the lives to come, isn't it?
Right. So, I mean, this is where I struggle with that, because she's contributing or supporting her husband who goes and kills other beings, right?
Yes.
So in a way, she is contributing or supporting that that wrong action, if you like, that her husband is. So I guess this is where, at a conceptual level, I struggle with that, because supporting a wrong action in itself isn't wholesome, isn't it? Is it?
Correct. So this is, I think we have to understand different societies. So the society I live, the modern society we live in, a lot of people have the ability to change their careers, isn't it? But
Yes.
if you think about the times of Buddha's times, there was the caste system. The caste means your job. I don't believe that, even if she wanted to change her career or her husband's career, unless they became monk and a nun, they would have not been able to change their careers. So that's how I look into it. That's how I look into it.
So she couldn't just walk away from it, really.
Correct.
She didn't have right.
Correct. Unless, that's where the Buddhas, that is the difference between most of the religious
doctrines,
groups in that time period and the Buddhism, because Buddha welcomed people from the lowest caste who were, floor sweepers or toilet cleaners, to the highest, which were kings, queens, and the richest merchants in that era. But people forget he didn't welcome them just by saying, "Come into my come into the monkhood or the nunhood." He had a certain level of discipline that brought both of them to a certain level. So for those who were born unprivileged, he actually teach those people how to eat, how to drink, how to walk, how to speak, and bring them up into the way that they behave. And from the highest caste, he brought them down to a middle ground where, their privileges were removed from them, where, they couldn't live in that lavish life, but a very modest life under the Buddhist teachings. So how I see Buddhism is a very unique way of changing society, because he never challenged anyone. He didn't tell the king to stop doing what he was doing.
Right.
He let him do his job, because if you challenge the king, that it would have created a uplifting of a society, isn't it?
Upheaval. Yeah, indeed.
Yes, yeah. But he didn't do that. What he did was he created a different society, a Buddhist society, where every individual is in a middle level.
Right.
I always see this as,
so sort of everyone was at an equal, sort of egalitarian level.
Correct. Yeah, I see this actually as a Buddhist teaching is like teaching people how to be a prince or a princess. This is how I see it, because I think it teaches how to be a very, good behavior. Like, it's it teaches how to eat, how to drink, how to, it's basically mindful living. You live
Yes.
in a way that it is not only harmful to others, also disrespectful to others. It's about, yes, but you have skills to become a leader. If you have to be a king, you can still be a king and behave that way. So that's how I see Buddhism is. It is not about you have to live in a life that is with bare minimum.
Right.
Even if you have bare minimum, you can actually put an effort to come up that level to become a better person.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, I mean, for our listeners who don't have a screen in front of them, the Eightfold Path consists of the practices of right view, right resolve, or one might call that right effort, but also right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi, or meditative absorption, or union, alternatively equanimous meditative awareness. So talk us through your own personal journey, Dr. Lanka, and what have been, so give us some insights into some of the challenges that you've had through your life at incorporating the Eightfold Path into your daily life, if you're in a position to talk about that at all today.
Of course, it is a challenge. Having a moral human mind can be challenging in a world
Yes, full of distractions, right? Yeah.
full of greed and success, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
It's all about how much I can earn, who can I be. It's a challenging world. So
Indeed.
the obstacle is practicing Eightfold Path in a society that lacks spirituality can be quite challenging, because others around you may not understand the rationale behind certain ethical behaviors and decisions associated with your values. So that is the biggest challenge I find. But the successes behind that is, I consider Buddhism as the most influential teaching that empowered me with discipline and resilience through the journey of my life. Because if you know that growing in Sri Lanka, my parents were really good with covering us from a lot of post-traumatic trauma that comes through with a country that has lived with 30 years. And not only that, in 1989, there was civil uprising and there was 3 decades of civil war. And I believe that,
that was the early 80s, isn't it? It's the early 80s. Yeah.
And, somehow we have grown up to be individuals who believe in kindness, generosity and compassion, regardless of what's going in the country. So
correct.
I think
probably why the Civil War lasted for so long.
What was that?
Probably why the Civil War lasted for so long.
Because that's a different talk, Dr.
Well, yes, but I find Sri Lankan society in general is very. I've often reflected on this, and I mean, having lived across 3 different continents and countries, Sri Lanka, the United Kingdom and Europe, and then Australia in my late teens, I've always found Sri Lankan society to be very laid back, you know, very accustomed to change, anicca, we would call that, and just accepting. Not particularly aggressive necessarily, they don't have that aggressive fighting mentality. So I've often reflected on that and the politics behind the Civil War. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. I digress. I'm sorry. Yeah. You were saying growing up in Sri Lanka.
It's cool. Yeah, no, that's so good. Because I think if you wanted to take an example, our cricket team, during when we won a lot of matches in 1996, you can see how humble they were. They were not aggressive, you know. Even if they lost a match, others might be crying over it, but they never cried over it. No, because you know, we understand life is about not only winning, it is about failing. And the most important thing is that understanding, yes, this failing is, you know, not going to stay still. It is going to change, just like our successes are going to change. So the most important value of practicing Eightfold Middle Path in today's life is that you can never fail yourself in front of the obstacles that comes with daily living, because those obstacles and failings becomes a stepping stone to personal development and mindfulness cultivation. That is what Buddhism is about. It is not about sit and cry when you have difficult life. It is, you know, understanding I'm in a difficult situation. How can I get out of this difficult situation without harming myself or without harming others? It is not about putting others in a difficult situation because you are in a difficult situation so you can get out of it. It is about how can I, you know, get out this situation without putting others in danger. So I think that is the most important thing about Buddhism or Buddhist practice in daily life.
Teaching ourselves emotional regulation and how we react to situations.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. So what have been your challenges, your personal challenges, if you don't mind me asking, through this journey?
Through just journey, challenges would be, yes, when you have a ethical mind, you always question. As you said, you know, in your job, that you were thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I harming someone on my way in this journey? Yes, I may be, but is my intention is to harm a singular person, or my intentions are bigger than that? It's almost like, you know, running a country. Like, I think we are all rulers in our own world, because, you know, running a country is not easy. For an example, like, you know, King Kosol was a great friend of Lord Buddha. So I will tell you this story about him. He one day came to Lord Buddha later than he was expected to meet him. So King Kosol never does that. If he says that he will come and meet Lord Buddha, he will come on that time, but he got delayed. The reason behind that was, when he comes to see Lord Buddha, he actually comes without his less security. So he comes to Buddha with less security,
Less
obviously, bodyguards
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
And this was being identified, and one of the looters decided to take advantage of that.
Oh, wow.
So, but obviously, King Kosal was a very powerful king. His like secret services. This is a story I've heard through, all these Buddhist stories. So
Fantastic.
when he learned about it from his secret services, he had to attend to it, because like if a leader is being challenged or he loses his security, the whole country loses his security. That's how I see it.
Absolutely.
So what he did was he actually went and killed all these people, looters, and hang their heads on the roads, and came to see Lord Buddha. So Lord Buddha knew what he did, but he didn't ask him what he did, because Lord Buddha knew that he's done something wrong. Obviously, he's killed people, right?
Right.
But his intention is not only about saving his life. It is about securing the independence or the security of the country.
Yes.
So the only thing Lord Buddha told him was that you have done this, and you will have the karma of doing this.
You'll have the fruits of your seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think our lives are the same. Sometimes you may have to do things that you may harm a single person or may harm a single individual. But at the end of the day, your intentions has to be good. My intentions as an occupational medicine doctor is to provide advices to organizations where they can provide safety of their, improve the health and well-being of their employees and the public. So by doing that, sometimes I may have to say, look, this person is not fit to drive. So yes, I am saying that, because there is a reason behind it. It's not because that I am completely against of this person driving. So
it's not personal. It's not personal.
It is not personal. So this is how I think the Buddhism has helped me to live my life, because I think as professionals, we need to be able to sleep at night.
Yes.
Based on our decisions, isn't
it? Absolutely. Yeah.
But that decision have to have a good intention. That's how we can sleep.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you agree?
Completely. Yeah.
So, and we have to, especially as doctors, sometimes I think because we are so obliged to support others and do the good for others, we forget about ourselves, and we forget about the limitations around us. We can't save all the people. We can't support everyone. We have to have a limit of how we can support others and how much we can support others and how often we can do it without jeopardizing our own health and well-being.
Wow. Yeah.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes. So those are the challenges I think that comes with the profession I have faced, which I have, learned to live with. by following Buddhist mindfulness each and every moment of my life, even when I'm angry and unhappy with someone who's not, who's not, helped me or supported me.
Yeah.
You have to put, you have to know about that person as well.
Well,
You
that's
have to
right.
be,
That's right.
yes,
You have to be mindful and compassionate,
yes.
understanding. Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Lanka. I think, it's almost coming to the hour mark. I just wanted to, we can go over it depending on how much time you have. But lastly, I just wanted to, or not necessarily lastly, I just wanted to ask you about the programs that Arogya runs for companies that come and seek your assistance, in terms of the well-being programs, the health programs. Are you in a position today to discuss those?
Yeah, I can briefly discuss. Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful.
So I have designed, so these are introduction programs.
Uh-huh.
So I've designed three types of programs. One is a one-to-one program called
Yep.
Premium. And then the second is an executive program, which is for a group of people, up to 8. And
Yep.
then the seminar programs. So the one-to-one, I normally like to run it. It can be run face-to-face or Zoom. Via Zoom, team is the same. Seminars are difficult to run through Zoom, so it has to be a face-to-face programs. So these can be catered to the personal or the company needs, whether they want a short program, which will be only 3 sessions, or whether they would like a long program that can be run like over a year, like, once a month or something like that. And these are not just teaching people how to meditate, because there are a lot of programs around the country and around the globe teaching people how to meditate. I don't believe that,
Anything?
yes, I can add anything to it.
Sure.
What I want to do through my programs is to teach people how you can use Buddhist mindfulness to live on daily basis. How can you use these teachings to actually improve your mental health, improve your physical health, and improve your intellectual health, spirituality, connection with the environment, your occupation, and your finances. So it's about this eightfold of 8 dimensions to how you can use Buddhist mindfulness to improve the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And if I can use an example of what I have sent to you, Dr. Sander, it's so for those who are joining me with the premium or the executive programs, I will be providing a gift pack with some practical things with it, where they can use to, utilize it on day-to-day basis. Like it could be a puzzle book, it could be, a mug and a tea box to say, look, you can use even those little things to improve your day. Because, for an example, as a doctor, people hardly drink water.
Yes.
People don't eat their breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So my question to my colleagues is, how can you look after others when you have not looked after yourself?
Indeed.
Yes, you may be running on your adrenaline drive, but how long can you run on that adrenaline
Exactly.
limb without getting sick psychologically or physically.
Yes.
So it's really, really, whether you're a doctor, whether you are a pilot, whether you are a frontline services officer, it's really, really important that you look after yourself, because you're not only the person who is doing this occupation, you are also a daughter or a son. You're also a husband or a wife. You're also can be a mother or a father. So, in life, occupation is just one side of us. If we put 100% to that without looking after ourselves or looking after the people who are actually really close to us, is that a fulfilling life?
Yeah, no, it's not, is it? No,
No.
indeed.
So what I'm trying to teach through my programs is how can you actually create a balanced life by using basic Buddhist principles of mindfulness, so you can be content on each moment and each side of your life. Because a lot of doctors are content as a doctor, but they could be a miserable husband or a father.
Right.
The reality is that, or they could be really good at home, they could be really bad at work.
Yes.
Because, but life is about, we need to have a job, we need to have family, we need to be able to, mingle with other people in the society. We need to be able to do something for the future of this earth as well. So it's about creating a wholesome person who can be content through the Buddhist mindfulness. Does that gives you a bit of introduction to what I'm trying to do?
Really, so sort of creating balance in people's lives.
Correct.
Work at home, and also how they influence their wider circle, society, environment around them, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
And through the Eightfold Path, through mindfulness, you're sort of trying to create that balance, indeed.
Correct. Yes.
By imbibing right ethical practices in their daily lives, whether it will be at work, at home, or to their wider environment, moral conduct, etc. Those eight steps that we mentioned before. That's great. So how does someone get in touch with your company? How do they engage in the programs? You've got a contact us part, which on your website I noticed, which has the Melbourne office, the PO box, so they have the call us as well as the email us, and it's all on the website, isn't it? So if they call you, they'll be in touch with you directly, or
yes, so they can actually go into the website and either send me a contact message, or they can give me a call on my number or send me an email through the website.
Brilliant. And the website is with Buddhism, all one word, .com.au.
Yes.
Yep. That's fabulous. Well, thank you, Lanka. It's been, I think, a very, very interesting podcast talking about the Eightfold Path, incorporating it into your daily lives, your personal challenges in doing so, and indeed mine. And thank you for talking through us all on that, and also talking through your business and its missions. It's been a great session. Lastly, is there anything that you wanted to add to our discussions today?
I wanted to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I'm sorry it took us so long. As you know, I've had some challenges, personal challenges with my health. So I've had to, I've kept putting this off for too long. But I'm really glad and relieved that we finally got this done. I think that's fantastic.
That's all right. That's okay. No, I'm glad that we were able to do this podcast, and I hope that it is what you hoped.
More than that. In fact, it was surpassed expectations. So I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Osunda.
Okay. Thanks, Lanka. Well, have a good rest of your evening, and I'm sure we'll chat soon again. And hopefully we can come back on and maybe have a few more chats on this topic when you're ready.
Yeah.
When you're ready. Okay. Lovely.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.